Hello trainers, Professor Palm here, and I just got back from the Sinnoh region. I went on a little excursion with a lot of other trainers, and we went underground and saw everything that lies beneath the Sinnoh region. That was so much fun, but I gotta say, oh boy, it was hot down there. When going underground, we could find a lot of things down there. One of the things that a lot of us like to dig up when going underground are spears. They can be many different sizes, but of course, we unfortunately cannot sell these things, which is kind of sad. So there's other things that we can dig up, like treasure, like we can dig up shards, or even evolutionary stones. There's a lot of things that hide in the Grand Underground of the Sinnoh region. But for me, I think that my treasure, of course, would always be whenever I dig up a fossil. As you know, I have fossil fever, and I love prehistoric Pokemon. Prehistoric Pokemon are my life. They are some of the coolest Pokemon out there, and I gotta say, there are a lot of fossils that we have, and let's be happy that we have the science to bring back these incredible creatures, because a lot of us really want to know, what were they like back in the day? As you know, not only do I love fossil Pokemon, but I've had a couple of episodes where I've talked about what makes them so amazing. However, I don't think that I've ever really shared what my favorite fossil Pokemon is. Well, today, I'm going to change that, and I'm going to introduce to all of you trainers who my favorite fossil Pokemon of all time is. And it's none other than the one that was introduced in Generation 1, Aerodactyl. Yep. Even though it's a vicious predator, this fossil Pokemon has always been my favorite, but for many reasons, and I guess I could say that not only do I really love flying-type Pokemon, but it really is cool to look at the very first flying-type Pokemon ever. Even though Aerodactyl debuted in Generation 1, my true introduction to Aerodactyl and seeing how powerful it was in Generation 4 with Pokemon Soul Silver. When I took on Lance's team, he sent out his Aerodactyl, and I first thought, oh, that's going to be easy. But let me tell you, his Aerodactyl decimated most of my team, and it was a very terrifying Pokemon. That's when I learned how powerful prehistoric Pokemon can be. Oh, and I gotta say, along with his Charizard, Aerodactyl was the only other Pokemon on Lance's team that did not have a ×4 weakness. So, even if you got the other ones down, you still had to deal with these Pokemon. And let me tell you, they really did not go down without a fight. Because of that champion battle with Aerodactyl, I gotta say, I learned the importance of prehistoric power, and I would never go again without having an Aerodactyl on my team. So, in any game that I could get an Aerodactyl from the old Amber, I always go for it. This Pokemon has left such an amazing impact on me from that battle, and I would even go on to say that Aerodactyl is probably one of my all-time favorite flying-type Pokemon, at least in the top 5. But I really do have to be honest. I think it's kind of crazy that during Lance's entire champion battle, he has 3 Dragonite and 1 as his ace, and yet his second in command is the Pokemon that leaves the most impact? Wow. Take a bow, Aerodactyl. That is no easy task for any Pokemon to do, even on a champion's team. Aerodactyl is a great fossil Pokemon I would recommend to any trainer who not only likes rock-type Pokemon and flying-type Pokemon, but also really loves fossils and likes powerful Pokemon. Let's talk all about Aerodactyl and what makes it such an incredible predator. But before we do that, I want to give a huge thanks to Etsy artist HTTP Koopa for my shirt. This isn't just the rock-type jersey. This is actually Gordy's jersey. For those of you who may not know, Gordy is a Pokemon Sword exclusive gym leader who's a rock-type specialist. And since we're talking about fossil Pokemon, or prehistoric Pokemon that we recover from fossils, I couldn't think of a better shirt to wear than rock-type. Is rock-type your favorite, or do you really like the shirts I wear from HTTP Koopa? Well, check him out on Etsy. I'm going to put a link to his Etsy page in the description below. Check him out, buy a shirt, and tell him Professor Palm sent you. I may not be sponsored, but of course, I want to give him a huge thanks for all he's done for the channel and these amazing shirts. It's time to unleash the beast in the sky, and here it comes for a swoop attack. Prepare yourself, because here comes the apex predator, Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl, the fossil Pokemon, is based on the dinosaur, the Pteranodon, or as it's most commonly known as, the pterodactyl. However, Aerodactyl's pointed wings, arrow tail, and robust jaw also give a resemblance of dragons and wyverns. Many paleontologists believe that Aerodactyl was the apex predator back in the Stone Age. This is because many of the Pokemon fossils and bones that have been recovered seem to have scratch and bite marks that perfectly match up with an Aerodactyl's jawline and claws. In prehistoric times, this vicious Pokemon ruled as king of the skies. Aerodactyl preferred to be high in the sky among the clouds. It oftentimes looked down on other Pokemon. Then again, it was the apex predator and the highest thing on the food chain. Speaking of food, when Aerodactyl was hungry, it would swoop down and catch its prey. This is because it was better at doing this from the sky than on the land. You see, since Aerodactyl spent so much time flying, it barely ever stayed on the ground. And when it was on the ground, it was both a bad walker and very slow. One of Aerodactyl's most standout features are its two wings. And these are some of the most beautiful wings ever made in the Pokemon world. Also, Aerodactyl was very fast with its wings. In fact, if it marked something as prey, there was no way to stop Aerodactyl from swooping down to get them. The only possible way was to take out its wings, and then maybe you had a chance to get away from it. But still, Aerodactyl's wings are very powerful and are so strong that this Pokemon can go from place to place in under a minute. It's even been stated that Aerodactyl could fly from region to region in less than an hour. While Aerodactyl's wings are pretty powerful, and seeing this Pokemon swoop down and fly can be very scary, I think the thing that you should be most afraid of are Aerodactyl's teeth, as that is its main weapon. The sharp teeth are like saw blades. In fact, Aerodactyl's saw-like fangs can shred skin to ribbons. Even the skin of Steel-type Pokemon will be shredded like cheese. So, if you see an Aerodactyl or you own one, keep your hands as far away from these teeth as possible. Aerodactyl also sports itself a very powerful set of vocal cords. Just one shriek of its high-pitched cries has enough power to shatter even diamonds. It's theorized in the prehistoric times, Aerodactyl did this not only to weaken its prey, but also fill them with dread. After all, hearing this cry and seeing this Pokemon approach you could only mean one thing: your dinner. You might be asking yourself, what? If Aerodactyl was the apex predator and the king of the skies, how did this Pokemon die? Shouldn't we see it in the modern day in the skies? Well, trainers, that answer has a couple of theories, as we don't know the real answer of what happened to all the fossil Pokemon. Some Pokemon paleontologists believe that a meteor struck the Earth and killed so many of them. There's also another theory of overhunting that caused Aerodactyl to starve and go extinct. And there's even theories that some Pokemon finally had enough of Aerodactyl's reign and fought back, finally getting rid of these Pokemon. Those Pokemon are Rampardos and Cranidos, who actually have been recorded to be major rivals of Aerodactyl back in prehistoric times, and some of them still are today in modern times. And there are some theories out there that Aerodactyl exists in the modern day, but they evolved into other Pokemon, as some of them evolved into Charizard. Yes, I know that Charizard has 3 stages and Aerodactyl is a single stage Pokemon, but it is interesting to think that they do share some things in common, and at the same time, they are both Pokemon that are capable of Mega Evolution. Sadly, we'll never have a definitive answer of what happened to Aerodactyl as well as many other fossil Pokemon, but as games go on and times change, we learn a lot of new things like we learned in Generation 6 about Aerodactyl. Thanks to Professor Sycamore's research in the Kalos region, we learned that in Generation 6, Aerodactyl was one of the handful of Pokemon that could Mega Evolve into Mega Aerodactyl. Finally, we saw this Pokemon in Beast Mode when it was a true Apex Predator. Also, fun fact, Aerodactyl is the only fossil Pokemon capable of Mega Evolution. Sorry trainers, I don't happen to own a Mega Aerodactyl plushie. However, I can tell you everything that you need to know about this Pokemon when it undergoes Mega Evolution. When Aerodactyl Mega evolves into Mega Aerodactyl, it becomes much more vicious than ever before. It's believed that because of its excess power, that's causing Mega Aerodactyl horrible pain. And it's become so vicious because of the pain that Mega Aerodactyl will attack and destroy anything that moves. When Aerodactyl undergoes Mega Evolution to transform into Mega Aerodactyl, some of its body becomes solid stone. Some paleontologists believe that Aerodactyl's Mega Evolution awakens some dominant genes. Bringing back the sharp rocks that once covered it is actually not just Mega Evolution, but this is Aerodactyl's true appearance and what it looked like back in the Stone Age. Being against the Mega Aerodactyl can be terrifying, as the sharp stones on its body are harder than diamonds, and its teeth will rip anything to shreds that it bites down on. Also, with its powerful wings upgraded and its speed boost that it has now, imagine how fast it is. You will never outrun or even outfly this thing. Whether or not Mega Aerodactyl was Aerodactyl's true appearance back in the Stone Age, all I can say is, wow, that must have been a very difficult time to live in, especially with a Pokemon like this. And seeing it in the modern day is like a nightmare. You know what? With those sharp stones that Aerodactyl has when it Mega Evolves all over its body, I don't even think it needs to fight. All it needs to do is just swipe its tail, its wings, or any part of its body, and it can shish kebab its foes, making a quick meal out of them. Aerodactyl made its anime debut in the Pokemon Indigo League episode, Attack of the Prehistoric Pokémon. In this episode, Aerodactyl scared off the other Cantonian fossil Pokemon that were chasing Ash and Team Rocket. This Aerodactyl also faced off against Ash's Charizard, who evolved from Charmeleon in this episode, and they had an intense sky battle. In the core series games, even though Aerodactyl has never served as the boss or ace of any trainer, Aerodactyl is the second in command of Dragon-type specialist Lance's team when you fight him at the Elite Four at the Indigo Plateau. When Lance becomes champion in any of the Johto games, his Aerodactyl returns again as second in command of his champion team. Aerodactyl is also the frontrunner of the Rock-type gym leader Rourke's team when you have a post-game rematch battle with him in the survival area at Battle Frontier. In the games, Aerodactyl can have one of two abilities, being either Rockhead or Pressure. With its first ability, Rockhead, Aerodactyl is protected from taking any sort of recoil damage. Aerodactyl's other ability is Pressure. Because this Pokemon is an apex predator and has a lot of intimidation, it puts a lot of pressure on its opponent and it raises its PP or Pokemon power. Stop laughing! When Aerodactyl Mega evolves into Mega Aerodactyl, it gains the ability of Tough Claws, which powers up moves that make direct contact with its opponent. If you look to battle competitively with hidden abilities that were introduced in Generation 5, Aerodactyl's hidden ability is Unnerve, which makes the opponents too nervous to eat berries. If you're a fan of Rock-type Pokemon, or you really like going at Mach speed, then might I suggest adding Mega Aerodactyl to your team. The reason why is Mega Aerodactyl has the highest speed base stat of all Rock-type Pokemon. Did you know that when Aerodactyl was first introduced in Generation 1, it was the most unique Rock-type Pokemon? The reason for this is Aerodactyl was the first Rock-type Pokemon that did not have a ×4 weakness to Grass-type attacks. Also, when compared to the other fossils, Kabuto, Kabutops, Ammonite, and Amistar, who had the Rock and Water typing, Aerodactyl's was instead Rock and Flying. Other than its typing, Aerodactyl also is the most standout fossil of all the others. You see, every time you get a fossil, it has a name of what it is, whether it be the Dome Fossil, the Helix Fossil, the Skull Fossil, the Armor Fossil, and so on. Aerodactyl doesn't have a name for its fossil. Instead, it can only be revived from something called the Old Amber. Pretty cool, huh? Also, final fun fact. Until Generation 3, at the Pewter Museum of Science, you can see both the skeletons of a Kabutops and an Aerodactyl. This is the only time in any of the series we have ever seen a Pokemon skeleton. While Aerodactyl has had its skeleton removed in some other games, it is interesting to think that that was once seen on display. In other games like Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, instead you'll see a model of an Aerodactyl flying in the sky. Rock-type Pokemon have a lot of weaknesses, and Aerodactyl is no exception. If you're going to battle with one, make sure that you have a lot of defense and have some potions, because these are the moves that you want to avoid and are super effective on Aerodactyl. And they are Water-type, Electric-type, Ice-type, Rock-type, and introduced in Generation 2, Steel-type. Wow, 5 weaknesses. That's a lot. Let's hope that if this thing battles, it also can make up with a lot of strengths and maybe even some immunities. Thankfully, Aerodactyl being a dual typing gains it a lot of strengths in battle. Being a rock and flying type, it has moves that are super effective on fire type, fighting type, flying type, grass type, bug type, and ice type. Wow, 6 strengths. What a great comeback. But it also has an immunity as well. After all, this is a rock and flying type Pokemon. And Aerodactyl's immunity, of course, is ground type moves. That's right, because this Pokemon's flying, no ground type moves can hurt it. This Pokemon flies over earthquakes or any possible ground type move. You can't hit this apex predator and king of the sky. Out of all prehistoric Pokemon, I'm happy to say Aerodactyl is my favorite. I think something that's so cool about Aerodactyl is, other than being the first flying type Pokemon, it really also could be the very first dragon Pokemon. While I know we got another line that was Rock and Dragon, this also could have been an ancient dragon type Pokemon, but who knows? Things change from time to time. Oh, and I have to say, as a kid, I loved pterodactyls, and seeing a pterodactyl Pokemon made me very happy. I love prehistoric Pokemon. I'm glad that we have fossil restoration, but the problem I have with it is oftentimes we don't get to use this until very late in the game. Thankfully, in games Pokemon X and Pokemon Y, we got to restore our fossils before we took on the second gym, which was great for me. I got to restore a lot of fossils and go on the journey with them. I definitely was happy to get that going with Aerodactyl. Oh, and I gotta say, Aerodactyl was great to have on my team, and with its Mega Evolution, oh boy, I destroyed so many gym leaders, Team Flare Grunts, and even the scientists and Lysander. Well, all I can say is, sometimes having some prehistoric power on your team is the way to go. Even though Aerodactyl is a vicious predator of the sky, we might owe it a huge thanks. Because of this Pokemon, we may have never become trainers. You see, some paleontologists believe that Aerodactyl was the reason people and Pokemon started working together. Since Aerodactyl preyed on both cavemen and prehistoric Pokemon, it's possible that they noticed that they had the same enemy and they decided to start working together to take it down. So yeah, as scary as this Pokemon is, Aerodactyl may be responsible for creating the very first Pokemon trainer ever. To me, Aerodactyl will always be the ancient dragon of prehistoric times. I know it's not a dragon-type Pokemon, and it's only appeared on a few dragon-type teams, but it really looks like one, and it also looks like it could even stand up to some dragons today. Oh, and yeah, I do know that we have the Terrestrial phenomenon in the Paldea region, so if we change Aerodactyl's Terra type to dragon, it finally will become a dragon. I just hope that maybe, just like Mega Evolution, Aerodactyl is a Pokemon that finally will become a dragon another way. Makes me sad that its Mega Evolution didn't gain it the dragon typing, because it really would have fit it perfectly. An Apex Predator Pokemon is always great to have with you, but the original, oh boy, having this thing by your side, you are going to win countless victories, you are going to get very far, and it's possible that you will also become the highest thing on the food chain. When people look up at Aerodactyl, they're not just scared of this thing, they're scared of the stories they were told about this creature, because it was once the terror of the sky. Hello trainers, I hope you enjoyed learning all about Aerodactyl and what makes this Pokemon such an amazing predator, as well as how terrifying it is. But before we end this, I have a few questions for you. When it comes to fossil Pokemon, aka prehistoric Pokemon, who's your favorite? Do you think that maybe some paleontologists are right that Aerodactyl became Charizard through years and years of evolution, or at least the ones that survived and learned how to adapt? Do you think that when Aerodactyl achieved Mega Evolution with many other Pokemon, that it should have had its typing change from Rock Flying to Rock Dragon? Do you think that because Aerodactyl was such a terrifying apex predator that we have this Pokemon to thank for creating the bonds between trainer and Pokemon that we have today? And what's your favorite dinosaur? Have they made a Pokemon on it yet? Or do you think that they should make a Pokemon on it for a future region? Well, if you liked what you saw, please leave a like. If you have any questions, you want to answer the questions I threw out at you, you want me to cover another thing Pokemon related, or you have an idea for a video, please comment. And as always, if you liked what you saw and you want to see more, smash that subscribe button. I hope that you had a wonderful time learning about the OG Apex Predator. I gotta say, seeing this Pokemon in a whole new light definitely makes me appreciate how great it can be for a team. And thanks for watching, trainers. Palm out!